What is up, Packers fans? Happy Thursday. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Pack-A-Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. Thanks so much for being here today. It's always an interesting sort of dynamic change when the season starts, where in the off season, it's so much of me going solo and talking to you guys every single day, just like we're doing right now. And then in the season, I love it to death. I get to talk to Paul Farrington, and I get to talk to Paul Brettel and Justice Mosqueda and Aaron Nagler and like Carmen Vitale, et cetera, right? I get to talk to so many people, and it's this awesome, really fun back and forth. And we get to talk to really smart people and listen to their thoughts and everything. And it's a ton of fun. But I have to admit, sometimes I just miss the ability to chat one-on-one. So I'm excited about today's show. Our main topic for today is going to be the highest and lowest grades from week 2. And I'll just state the obvious right up front. I understand the Commanders game was a week ago. And I know on top of mine now is not week 2, right? We're getting into week 3, Packers, Browns, everything like that. I promise you we'll get into that as well. We're going to go through a lot of breakdowns with Packers and Browns. There's stuff out there on the audio podcast. And of course, you guys have seen all the extra content that we've put out here on the YouTube channel as well. So there's tons of that stuff available. But today we're going to be going through the grades. And what I'll just say is sometimes with going through and grading every player on every play, especially early in the season, as I kind of get back in the swing of things, it's a labor of love, right? It takes time, it takes effort, it takes energy. All I can say to you is sometimes it's going to take a little bit longer, but I promise you the quality is there. I could probably half-ass it if I wanted to and, get it to you guys quicker so that it was more timely. Sometimes it just takes a little bit longer. So my apologies that it took a week, but alas, here we are giving you the grades, highest and lowest for week 2. We'll get into that in just a moment. Before we get there, I do want to mention that we are brought to you today by Alchemy Wealth Management, my good friend Ryan Nelson. Check him out over at retirewithryan.net. Here's the really cool thing. A free consultation. Go to retirewithryan.net. That is just for Pack-A-Day podcast fans. Nobody else. You can see the landing page, retirewithryan.net. You go there, you set up your consultation. It is free for Pack-A-Day listeners, $175 value. You can also download a free guide, The Retirement Tax Bomb and How to Diffuse It. Again, retirewithryan.net. The link is in the show description. I get retirement. It's the furthest thing from our minds right now. There's a lot going on. Feels like every dollar matters. It's why it's even more important. So check it out over at retirewithryan.net. Now, if you decide that you do not want to put your money into retirement and want to spend it all right now, the only other thing that I can tell you is to invest it in Luigi's Pizzas. It's not going to get you anything in the long term, but it is going to get you delicious, delicious pizzas. Right now, I had just a cheese, ultra thin crust pizza for dinner. Here was the math that took place. I had my 2 boys and myself. We're going to split a pizza along with one of my friends, or my son's friend. He left, so that made more pizza for me. And then all of a sudden, my youngest son just got his lower braces on, and he needed something soft, so he needed applesauce and some oatmeal. So that left more pizza for me. But then my oldest son wanted more pizza, so we are thinking of ways that we can figure out how that never happens again, because I don't like that at all. But I did get to enjoy a Luigi's cheese pizza. If you haven't checked them out yet, luigispizza.com, and over on social media at Luigi's Pizza. They are freaking incredible. All right, let's get into the injury report. For the Browns, only one real injury of note. DeAndre Carter, their returner, has a concussion. You might think of like all the players on the Browns are like, oh, the only injury is DeAndre Carter. It's not an insignificant injury. Now, if he is able to play, obviously that's huge for them, but he is their best kick returner, and he is their best punt returner, and he is rather dynamic. And if there is one takeaway from week 2 that left you wanting a little bit more, special teams is probably number 1A on that list. The special teams was not great a week ago. And for Green Bay, making sure that they don't give up a big return, a big explosive, is really one of the keys to this game. Cleveland needs a little bit of extra help, some sort of turnover win, some sort of big return. And if they don't have their top returner and DeAndre Carter as their kick returner and punt returner, that definitely hurts Cleveland in this game. So it's not an insignificant injury. Definitely keep an eye on DeAndre Carter. And if he's able to come back from that concussion this week, if he's not, it's definitely going to hurt them. If he is, Green Bay is going to have to be extra aware of him on both kick returns and on punt returns. From the Packers, the only player that did not practice was Jaden Reed, which we know, right? He is going to have a couple months off. More on that in just a moment. Limited were Aaron Banks, Nate Hobbs, Josh Jacobs, Bo Melton, and Zach Tom, but all of them did practice in some capacity. Aaron Banks and Zach Tom, the big ones returning, although Bo Melton also returned to practice. Aaron Banks said after practice to reporters, he's playing on Sunday. So that's a great sign that you're going to get one of your starters back. Zach Tom was far less committal. He's basically saying take it one day at a time. He said laterally he can move fine. When he's in the open field and having to move forward, it's when it starts hurting him a little bit more. So I don't know. My guess is they probably take this a little bit easy with Zach Tom, maybe even through Dallas to give him that bye week. But listen, if your best offensive lineman can go and give you reps, especially when Myles Garrett is out there, you certainly give him the entire week to see if he can figure it out and go, not figure it out, but if he can go and, make it work. Sometimes all of a sudden we've seen in the past where it looks like he's not going to go, not Zach Tom, but anyone's going to go, not going to go, not going to go. And then all of a sudden they feel really great right before the game and all of a sudden they can play. So that's why Matt is always going to give everyone through the week to see if they can. But right now, just a great sign that Banks, Melton, and Zach Tom were out there practicing. Also, Zane Anderson and Jordan Love were practicing in full. That should be a great indicator that Zane Anderson is ready to make his 2025 debut, and Jordan Love had no wrap on his, at least noticeable wrap per Mike Spofford on his left finger. So that seems to be getting a little bit better as well. I guess I should say left thumb. Now, there's a couple things that I want to get into with the entire Jayden Reed injury. The first thing is he did have successful surgery, but as you guys know, it wasn't just the broken collarbone surgery he had. He also had surgery on his foot. I think one of the big questions that people had was, does that now extend his injury timeline? Per Matt LaFleur in his press conference on Wednesday, it does not extend his timeline at all. That is great news. And hopefully when he comes back, that foot and the broken collarbone will all be healed and he'll be completely good to go for the stretch run for Green Bay. So great news there overall for Jayden Reed. The other thing that I've seen a lot of people ask is, why are the Packers not putting Jayden Reed on injured reserve? Why are you continuing to list him on the injury report? And why is he taking up a roster spot? Just put him on injured reserve and get it over with. You know he's going to miss 4 weeks anyway. There's actually an inherent advantage right now to keeping him on injured reserve. This could easily take place already by the time you've listened to this. All right. It could happen at any given moment, but just hear me out for a second on this. If you don't need that roster spot this week, remember, they already have an open roster spot from putting Brenton Cox on injured reserve last week. If you're going to sign somebody to the 53 just to deactivate them on game day, meaning they're not going to make the 48-man roster anyway, well, there's really no advantage to putting them on the active roster, because the only thing you do in that situation is pay them more money. So if you don't feel like you need those 2 roster spots, like you're going to sign 2 people probably from your own practice squad, right? And then, deactivate them anyway, meaning they're not going to be active. Or even if they are going to be active, you're still better calling them up from the practice squad than actually signing them to the 53. That is why you don't necessarily need to do it right now. Now, they could put him on IR and then just leave that roster spot open as well. The point being is, until you need the roster spot, there's no rush to do this. Now, if there were a player that you wanted to pick up off of some team's practice squad to put on your 53, or there was something like that, then by all means, put him on IR, grab that player. But if there's not a player that you're pining to get on your 53 and you don't need him active for game day, you're probably just better off not filling that spot and not paying extra money and just using the players that you have and then calling up players from the practice squad and going about it that way, again, until you actually need those 53-man roster spots. And by the way, there's a world where you probably just maybe keep those 2 spots empty this week and next week if you want. I'm not saying they have to, but if you want, keep those 2 spots empty. And then when you come back, if Christian Watson or Marshawn Lloyd or a couple of those players are ready to go, you could activate them at that time and have those 2 roster spots already available for you, rather than having to waive somebody, subject them to waivers, and have them potentially picked up at that point in time. So there are some reasons why you wouldn't need to rush to put him on IR. But whenever they need that spot or whenever they just want to decide to fill out the paperwork, they can definitely do so. You do want to make sure clearly that you get it so that when there's 4 weeks left, at least, you can put him on IR, because he's going to be out 4 weeks once he's on IR, but they'll get to that well before it would ever get to that point. One other quick piece of news and notes: Darnell Savage was released by Jacksonville earlier this week. Do not see Green Bay having any interest in them. They have a pretty full safety room at the moment. Just a kind of a disappointing, career for Darnell Savage. And I think the biggest thing is such an awesome rookie year that showed so much promise, and then just kind of plateaued in Green Bay after that. I still think to this day, one of Goody's worst decisions was picking up the 5th-year option on Darnell Savage. There was really no reason to do so. My guess is he kind of learned his lesson on that one and has been a little bit more hesitant to give some of those true 5th-year options ever since. In that 5th year, they would have loved to have moved on from Darnell Savage, but the full contract was guaranteed. There was no advantage to doing so. So then they let him play out that final year, had the huge dropped interception, of course. And then, he goes to Jacksonville. I was stunned. Jacksonville gave him a huge contract, and it clearly has not worked out in Jacksonville either, because now he's a free agent. There are reports that there is interest in him throughout the league. I wonder if that's practice squad interest or if somebody's actually going to sign him to the 53, but Darnell Savage no longer a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars. All right, let's get into our main topic for today, and that is my highest and lowest graded Packers from week 2. We'll go through offense and defense and some notable ones in each category as well. Just a reminder, you can find the full grades over on PackerReport.com. It is behind a very, very cheap paywall, so you can usually get it pretty cheap, sometimes as low as 99 cents. But it is the way that I am credentialed, so make sure to check that out and go over to PackerReport.com, support their channel, or support the website, I should say. A lot of great people that you all know and love that are writing for Packer Report as well. It's really, I think, one of the most underappreciated websites to go to for Packer stuff. So check out PackerReport.com. And again, for a very, very small subscription, you can get access to the full grades all year long and kind of track them throughout the course of the year. All right, with that being said, top 3 highest graded offensive players this week. Number 1, Tucker Kraft, plus 1.10. If you're not familiar with the numbers, again, you can check it out, the full description over on PackerReport.com. The second thing I will say is they don't really matter all that much, okay? Just know high numbers good, low numbers bad. Like a -1 is usually going to be in like the lowest, grade per week. A +1 usually going to be in the highest. Neutral is going to be around 0, and you can kind of fill in the blanks from there. But Tucker Kraft, highest grade, plus 1.10. Really impressive week from Tucker Kraft. I don't really need to tell you too much on this one, because you saw all of his big plays. When it comes to the playmakers, you can usually see those a little bit better. And this week we got a glimpse right away when we were watching the game of exactly what Tucker was bringing to the table. In fact, this grade would have been higher had it not been for a false start penalty. Love the false start penalty, by the way, because he false starts, but recognizes it mid false start and stands up and tries to go into motion to pretend like, no, I wasn't false starting. I was just going in motion. They caught him. He did get the false start penalty on that one, but I do appreciate the effort from Tucker Kraft on that one to try to make it look like he was just going in motion. But had it not been for the false start, and then had a couple blocks that he would like to have back, but also had some blocks that were really effective in this game. I would say his blocking was probably still a little bit on the net positive side, but had he just had a couple other ones that didn't go quite as poorly, his grade would have even been higher. But either way, this was a massive week for Tucker Kraft. The run after the catch, the touchdown, we saw all of it on display, right? And again, there were some really good blocks out there as well, deserving this week of the highest graded player on offense. I don't think anyone's going to argue with that whatsoever. And just a very impressive performance as Tucker Kraft continues to come into his own and have that breakout 3rd year, as we were all expecting / hoping for, but it's happening legitimately right in front of our eyes. What's going on, everybody? It is time to get our sleeper picks in for week 3. I can't believe it's week 3 already. Week 2 is in the books, and we've got Thursday Night Football. And let's be real, this is the perfect type of game to get your sleeper picks in for. It's one of the best teams in football in Buffalo versus one of the worst teams in football in Miami. And that's why it makes it a little bit more fun to have those sleeper picks on the side. I'm going to make this one super easy. I expect Buffalo to win big. Because they're winning big, I'm expecting that Buffalo is going to be able to run the football. Because they're down big, I'm expecting Miami's going to have to throw their way back into this one, or at least try to. For that reason, from Miami's standpoint, Devon A-Chain, 30.5 receiving yards. I think he's going to have to be a big part of this receiving offense. And I think you could see a variety of checkdowns to him, which allow him to get more than 30.5 receiving yards. Tyreek Hill, a lot of garbage time yardage. Buffalo up big. They try to get Tyreek Hill involved. He's still going to want the football. He's still going to want to get his yards. So I'm going more than 68.5 receiving yards for Tyreek Hill. And then last but not least, James Cook, 64.5 rushing yards. There should be ample opportunity for Buffalo to run the football in this one. And I like James Cook's odds of getting more than 64.5 rushing yards in this particular game. So to recap, Devon A-Chain, more than 30.5 receiving yards. Tyreek Hill, more than 68.5 receiving yards. And James Cook, more than 64.5 rushing yards. Of course, make sure to get those picks in over on Sleeper. Terms and conditions apply. So make sure to check out those conditions over on Sleeper as well. The link is in the description below. And remember that you can get a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code Packaday. Again, a 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code Packaday. What are you waiting for? Get after it right now. Number 2, Jordan Love plus 1.00. This is such an interesting game from Jordan because 2 big misses, right, to Matthew Golden. On the 4th down play, Matthew is open for a touchdown. And there's some confusion. He walked through it in his little scrum on Wednesday, but he thought there were the indication was that there were 12 players on the field. So he was kind of taking it as a free play, throwing it down the field. He said he didn't even have a chance to look off the safety to the point where, again, he just thought he had a free play. And to Jordan's defense here, if you think you have a free play, sometimes you're willing to put a little bit more air under it just to make sure that your guy has a chance for it. You're not thinking, oh, it's do or die. You're thinking, we have a free play anyway. Let me make sure that he can get under it. Maybe we get a pass interference call, or maybe he goes up and makes the play. I want to for sure give him a chance, not throw this thing out of the end zone or not throw it too early or too far. I want to make sure he has the ability to get under it. But it was not a free play. And he was one way or the other. He was open. He had him. He was late on it. Jordan also said that. He said he would like to have that one back. And that's just a miss. It's a miss in that situation. Should have been a touchdown for Matthew Golden. That's just a miss. The other one to Matthew Golden should have been a 90-yard touchdown. You hit him in stride on that play. Nobody's catching him. That is a huge 90-plus yard touchdown. And I think you just completely, literally and figuratively, sprint away from this game if you hit that touchdown. And that's one, again, that Jordan would like to have back. He said that he just needs to put more air under that ball. Again, I will say this, that's still getting the chemistry down with a rookie wide receiver who runs a 4.2 40, right? You're still trying to figure out the rhythm and timing there. I'm willing to give, again, a little bit there, but at the end of the day, that's a pretty big miss. Both of them were. And if he hits those, we're talking about a massive grade for Jordan. On the flip side, his greatest throw of the day was the touchdown to Jaden Reed that gets called back due to an Anthony Belton penalty. So just kind of this interesting dynamic where his 2 negative ones were plays that could have been touchdowns, but he missed them. And his best play of the day was one that was a touchdown, but it got called back due to a holding penalty. A loss all the way around for Green Bay. What probably should have been 3 touchdowns ended up being 0 touchdowns. But that was by far and away his best throw, and it was a amazing throw. So this is a great example, right? Last week I talked about, hey, you grade the interception play by Brian Branch, even though there was a penalty on the play, you still grade that process and that play for Jordan Love. Unless the penalty was holding if Brian Branch was the one that was holding to gain leverage to pick off the pass, then it's totally different. But it wasn't. It was a hold on a different play. Love was going in that direction anyway, threw the ball, and it got picked off. So you still grade that process for Jordan in week 1 as an interception worthy play. This week, we still grade the touchdown. Even though Anthony Belton called that back, that is a gorgeous throw from Jordan Love. It is one of his best ones of the season so far. You don't downgrade or not grade that for Jordan when he did everything he could have on the play. He had no idea Anthony Belton was holding on the play. So that's a great example of sometimes due to penalty, you get an advantage in the game, but you still grade the play. And sometimes you get a disadvantage where the touchdown gets disallowed, but again, you still grade the play. So last week it hurt him. This week it helped him. but it's just kind of an interesting dynamic there. But outside of kind of the two misses, and then outside of the play that got called back, I thought it was a really solid game overall from Jordan. Really commanded the line of scrimmage. I didn't think, we'll talk about this in just a moment, but I didn't think his offensive line was actually great in this one. I thought the receivers played well. Again, would like to have those two plays to Golden back, but I thought he commanded the game, was good at the line of scrimmage, good with his checks, his calls, getting everyone up there, and making sure that everyone was on the same page. And then when he needed to come up with some clutch throws, was able to do so. And then putting really that touchdown drive together as soon as Washington cut it to 7, I thought was really important as well. So good day from Jordan, plus 1.00 grade. And then number 3 is going to surprise some people with my third highest graded player, a player who had 0 catches for 0 yards. And that is Matthew Golden, plus 0.75. I'll just say this right now. I have no idea how PFF has a negative grade on Matthew Golden, because 60 is their average. They had a slight, he's like at a 50, high 50 something, I think. I don't get it. First of all, he's open on the one play on the touchdown where Jordan underthrows him. That should be a touchdown. That's not Matthew Golden's fault. On the 90-plus yard play, he's running away from the entire defense. That should have been a 90-plus yard touchdown. Jordan missed them. Those are 2 plus plays from Matthew Golden that he had no say in it, because he couldn't have done anything different. He did everything that he could have to be in the position to go and make successful plays. And then the rest of the tape is littered with him getting open on a variety of different routes. If you're concerned, anxious, frustrated, nervous about where where Matthew Golden is at, that he is, maybe not, as far along as you would expect it, only 2 catches so far, I promise you, this is a matter of when, not if. He is going to break out in a significant way. He is getting open consistently. And as soon as Jordan sees that on the all-22 every week and starts looking his way more, and they get in that rhythm and timing, you're going to see a very talented wide receiver start making a lot more plays and being a lot more involved in this offense. He was really good in this game. He just has 0 to show for it in the box score. And with Jaden Reed, which was where I was going with that, where with Jaden Reed being out, Jordan Love already said Matthew Golden's going to be a big beneficiary of more snaps in the slot, which should be really important for him as he gets even more ingrained in this offense. So look for this to continue moving forward with Matthew Golden, of him getting a lot of separation and him paying that off in the future as he and Jordan Love get more and more on the same page. Bottom 3, lowest graded player, Jordan Morgan. Negative 0.8 grade. I did not think this was a good game from Jordan, either in run blocking or in pass protection. It's not one of those where I would say, all right, there needs to be reason for concern or anything like that. This is, a situation where he is moving from tackle to guard and kind of moving all over the place, left guard, right guard. I just thought he didn't look entirely confident. He didn't look super strong at the point of attack, struggled to really move anyone in the run game, kind of allowed some penetration on a few different plays. And just, again, you could see some, what I would kind of consider rookie moments. I know he's in his second year, but missed almost all of his rookie year. He's still within that first 17 games of his career. And he kind of looked like a rookie in this game. In fact, I would say he kind of looked more like a rookie than Anthony Belton did in this game. I would say slightly disappointing from Jordan. I thought he had a great preseason, a really good training camp. And I really thought he was going to come in games like this and just immediately perform and be at minimum like a neutral level player. It's one game. I'm not going to make too much out of it, but I thought this was a little bit of a disappointing performance from Jordan Morgan. Next up was Sean Ryan, negative 0.6. I would say uncharacteristic, but this was the Sean Ryan story in 2024. One really good game, not so good game. Good game, not so good game. It was just kind of like this crazy roller coaster. Apparently he's carrying that over into 2025. I thought he had a really nice week in week 1. And then in week 2, didn't think it was quite the same. A lot of this is run blocking, guys. Like, I just didn't think that this offensive line on the whole was good enough yet to open up things for Josh Jacobs. Yeah, there's some stuff where Washington's crowding the box, but you also just have to be able to block the guy in front of you. In totality, there's only one offensive lineman of all the guys that played that I had a positive grade on in this game, and that was Rasheed Walker. I thought Rasheed Walker had a really nice day, but everyone else at least had a slight negative or a bigger negative in the case of Sean Ryan and Jordan Morgan. I came away actually a little, not anywhere near nervous or anything like that, but just wanting a little bit more. I don't want to see this offensive line derail anything for this season because the team is looking so great. And it's worth noting that both Aaron Banks and Zach Tom, who is, their best offensive linemen, were out in this game. But watching the tape on this one, I thought there was a little bit more of an issue on the offensive line than I thought when I watched it initially. It's just something that I'm going to be monitoring a little bit. Speaking of which, my third lowest graded player on offense, Darian Kennard, -0.3, had a bad block that had immediate penetration, also went wrong on a play. There's a reason why they just decided to go with Belton. Kennard did not have a good open to the game. Belton was just playing better, and I thought they were really smart to put Belton in that right tackle spot. It was weird because if you remember, those long drives were with Kennard at right tackle, and all the ones that kind of flamed out were with Belton at right tackle. But Belton definitely, for me, and I know PFF as well, was the one who actually outplayed Kennard. And Green Bay felt the same way too, because they kind of benched Kennard and just let Belton take the snaps the rest of the way. So more happenstance there of just that they were scoring when Kennard was in the game. But I did think Belton was the superior player, not by a ton, but by at least a little bit in this one. Some miscellaneous offensive grades before going out with the injury. Jaden Reed was on pace for a really great game. Of course, that callback touchdown was a really big play, but plus 0.35 grade for Jaden Reed. Malik Heath plus 0.4. That catch along the sidelines was spectacular. Had a slight negative grade on the day outside of that, but that was a unbelievable catch by Malik Heath and could end up being the catch of the year from a Packers standpoint. The concentration, the ability to get his toes down, that is a 7% chance of being completed. And Malik Heath just said, don't worry about it. I got this. And he did. Really, really incredible play. I already talked about Rasheed Walker, highest graded offensive lineman, plus 0.4 grade there. And then Anthony Belton ended with a negative 0.25, but that was almost outside of the holding penalty that negated the Jaden Reed touchdown, graded in the positive outside of that play. That is a really great sign. And that's one that, like, if he just has a little bit better footwork and a little bit better technique on it, he's able to block that up really easily. And he probably has, again, the second highest at worst offensive line grade in this game. One of my favorite ones is he's at tackle and there's somebody that's going inside on him. Or actually, I take that back. There's somebody going against the guard and they kind of come a little bit in Belton's area, and Belton's watching his guy, right? And he's blocking him. And he just kind of he doesn't even look that way. Doesn't even look, but just gets a sense that there's a commander that's on his, just in his peripheral vision. And he just, boom. And the commander's down. He's just one left hand to the side. And that was it. The end of that play for that commander, that defensive tackle, he's just on the ground. So he's just doing his thing over here, decides to take his hand and just knock the other guy right to the ground with no effort whatsoever. There's some fun stuff that guy does on tape. And this, I thought, was a really encouraging first performance for a second round rookie who looked really raw in the preseason. I thought overall, lots to take away positive outside of that really brutal holding penalty that did take a touchdown off the board. Now let's get to the defensive side of the ball. Top 3 on defense, Micah Parsons, plus 1.40 grade. He was just outstanding. Unblockable is probably the best way to put it. I don't know what you do. They were doubling him, tripling him, and it just didn't seem to matter. He was still getting pressure. He was getting held and still getting pressure. We talked about the play where he starts outside with a speed rush, basically warps inside, and then just has a beeline, gets held, still shares the sack with Micah Parsons on the play, with Edgerrin Cooper on the play. Just an unbelievable week 2 performance. Good against the run, phenomenal against the pass, chasing down plays, just everything you could have possibly wanted and more so far from Micah Parsons, plus 1.40 grade. Of course, number 2, Keyshawn Nixon, plus 1.25 grade. 5 PBUs on the day will do that. Gave up one completion, and it was very, very short. And he was just all over the place. He had sticky coverage even when he wasn't thrown at. There was maybe 1 or 2 where if the ball came his way, it could have been a short or intermediate completion. But I thought on the day overall, he had very sticky coverage. He rallied to the ball, tackled well. And of course, when you end up with that many pass breakups, including one on 4th down that got them, kind of gave them the dagger, right? That got them the ball back At that point, I think it was able to put them up 17 with the field goal and up 3 scores at that point. Just a really impressive day from Keyshawn Nixon. And then Edgerrin Cooper, this is another one where I have no idea what PFF is thinking, having, I think, a slight negative grade on Cooper in this one. Flying around, making tackles, covering everything in that intermediate short area over the middle of the field, along with Quay Walker. And then multiple times, like kind of their go-to blitz in this one was there's like the 2 defensive tackles would go and, kind of take out 3 offensive linemen and then almost like blocking them. And Cooper would basically, swing around inside, and just with his speed, he would just be there momentarily. And it was impressive to watch. I thought Cooper was fantastic in this game. So again, I don't know how PFF got to their grade on that one, but I definitely liked what Cooper brought to the table. In fact, I thought some of his contributions in this one were probably a little bit undervalued from what it looked like on tape. He was once again flying all around the field. Bottom 3 on defense, really only one noteworthy one here. Karl Brooks, negative 0.55. PFF and I agreed on this one. Basically, the Commanders decided when Brooks was in the game that he was going to be the one that they were going to make go one-on-one. They were going to at least get 2 people on Micah. They would get 2 people on the other defensive end, whether it was Rashawn Gary or LVN. They would get 2 people on the other defensive tackle, whether it was Wooden or LVN or Devontae Wyatt, and they would make Karl Brooks go one-on-one. And he just couldn't beat it often enough. And that's where kind of the negative grade came in on this one. Thought he was okay against the run. There were a couple pass rush plays here or there, but I just didn't think he had the impact. That's one spot where Wooden's playing well right now. Wyatt's playing really, really well. But both of those players are playing far more snaps than they ever have in their career. I'm wondering how they hold up over the course of the season. And Karl Brooks right now, I would say, is playing below average. And Stackhouse just doesn't look quite ready to take on anything more than maybe 8 to 12 snaps per game. And Brinson, they clearly have not wanted to put on the active game day roster yet. They're holding up inside, but I do just have a little bit of concern with where the depth is at. I think Karl Brooks can play better. I like Karl Brooks, but he's had a little below average start to the season over the first couple weeks so far. Xavier McKinney and LVN were the other 2, negative 0.15 grades. LVN, I think a lot of this was him and Gary were really trying to contain on the edges, which I appreciate. But when they did get opportunities, they did not get to the quarterback with any ease. I thought Washington's offensive tackles, outside of having to go against Micah Parsons, actually held up pretty well for the most part. I think Rashawn had basically a neutral grade, but LVN, just a slight negative here. But Xavier McKinney, he had that penalty in the end zone, remember, the holding penalty. Also had a missed tackle later in the game. And when teams are just not throwing the ball at him, and he's being the one that's a lot of the times the deep safety, with Evan Williams coming up and playing more of like the short intermediate areas and, being able to actually kind of be a little bit more of a playmaker right now, it doesn't give Xavier really any opportunity to make any big plays. And so if he has a couple negatives, it's just kind of going to grade in the negative. So it wasn't anything bad per se. You don't want that holding penalty in the end zone. You don't want to miss tackle, but it's almost like he didn't get much opportunity to make up for it because they're not throwing his way and he's playing a lot of deep safety. So he just didn't have the opportunity to kind of counteract it, if you will. But those are the 3. Some miscellaneous defensive grades. Devontae Wyatt, plus 0.5. Another really impressive game from him. He has this kind of classic move that he does. It's a spin move, but it's like, if you're an AEW fan, it's almost like an AEW Eddie Kingston, like spinning back fist, but it's not, you're actually not connecting with the back fist. You're just like, that's how he's moving almost. It's really impressive. He's using the spin almost not as like to get free, but to almost like throw the player's momentum away so then he can get to the quarterback. It's a really good move. And especially for his size, it's really effective. He had one of those in this game. Baron Sorrell, plus 0.25, minimal snaps and made the most of them. Really impressed. Kind of want to see more. I kind of want to see if he can kind of supplant a little bit of Kingsley Enagbare, who I have not been super impressed by last year or early this year. If Sorrell is just better, I'm kind of already ready for Sorrell to get more snaps than maybe Kingsley Enagbare, but we'll kind of see how that plays out. Carrington Valentine wasn't as flashy because teams didn't throw at him. He didn't have a chance for 5 pass breakups, but he was sticky in coverage all day. And I just thought he had a really impressive performance overall. Nate Hobbs in his first game, plus 0.05. did have a holding penalty, maybe a little ticky-tacky, but he did kind of get him at the top of the route. At least I thought when I was watching it. But outside of that, I thought he had a solid performance for his first game as a Packer. Javon Bullard plus 0.45. He was flying all over the field, had a stretch where he made like tackle after tackle after tackle. I think he is playing far better than he was a season ago. And then Evan Williams started the game amazing, had a couple negatives towards the end, still ended with a plus 0.2 grade in this one. Just to recap it, top 3 on offense, Tucker Kraft, Jordan Love, and Matthew Golden. Bottom 3, Jordan Morgan, Sean Ryan, and Darian Kennard. Top 3 on defense, Micah Parsons, Keyshawn Nixon, and Edgerrin Cooper. Bottom 3, Carl Brooks, Xavier McKinney, and LVN. That's going to do it for me today. Make sure to check it out. Again, the full grades over at PackerReport.com. They should be up about midday on Thursday. Shout out to our All-Pro and Hall of Fame members, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Brandon Paletta, Boom Handle, Donald Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Alex Hwang, Peter Rataka, Jay Zimmerman, B. Brown, Puerto Rican Packer, Dan Gassford, Dylan Patscott, SoCal Pack, Chris Rager, Izzy Roberts, Ian Ewing, Carlo Delgado, Willie Winkle-Stinkle, Jen Wright, The Gable Storm, Pack Attack Cast, Chris Weish, Craig, John D. Metropolis, Hayden Radomski, Devin Lane, Ganzusa, Alexander Newell, Dan Miller, and Titletown T. I'll see you guys soon, but until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.